84% of people in our region consider themselves Christians. That means the church is everywhere, in our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools, government, healthcare systems, and more. Together, we have the power to transform our community so that everyone can flourish. But sometimes it's hard to see what role we can play and what difference we can make. So you're about to hear a story, and it's about an ordinary person helping our city flourish by integrating their faith into their everyday life. This is a story of the church beyond the pew.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Stories Beyond the Pew. Today, I'm very excited about our guest today, Mary Allen, Councilwoman Mary Allen.
Yes, yeah.
And also founder of 6 and 0.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a conversation with you because I don't actually know you super well. So I'm excited just to hear your story and kind of draw out those things that we've been talking about as just living your faith out in not having necessarily a ministry job in a church or necessarily nonprofit, but just integrating your faith into your everyday life. And so today we're just going to explore where is the church in environmentalism with 6 and 0. I'd love to hear that. And then also in politics, which is a super hot topic.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think we could all use for a little wisdom from you in this time.
So I hope I have some to offer. We'll see.
Let's get started.
Okay.
So 6 and 0 is your baby.
Yes.
So just tell us how you got involved in that.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it was just this evolutionary journey of just started out as really as 6th Street Soapery, body products and trying to do clean ingredients, that kind of thing. And then I always had a heart for sustainability, and that I wasn't raised necessarily with those thoughts or thinking toward that. And what's interesting is when you talk about where's God in environmentalism or the church in particular, I think there's a notion that, and I think I've gotten the most pushback about what I do and the things I share and try to advocate for in regards to climate from believers, from Christians in the church. And it is. And it shouldn't, I've always thought it shouldn't be a political thing. It's a people thing. And I think there's a thought process out there. Not everyone, by all means. I mean, we have some great folks, and even locally, like Tri-State Creation Care, the faith-based groups who are caring for the environment and doing things. But I think oftentimes there's this thought process that it's some far out left-wing liberal agenda that isn't real, and I obviously don't think that's true. So, and again, I think it shouldn't be a political thing. What's interesting about my journey in regards to sustainability and environmentalism is I was introduced to it as I was 21 years old, single mom, and the precious couple, pastor and his wife, invited me to live with them. And I lived with them for almost 2 years and really observed them live in a way that they were just being good stewards. I kind of thought at one point, are you guys just cheap? We would, water consumption, you would rinse off in the shower, you turn off your water, suds up, and then you turn the water back on to rinse it off.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And just as far as, we'd wash our Ziploc bags. We use cloth napkins at dinner time. You're very modest if you needed to use a paper towel, just various things.
Did they composted. Talk you through why they did that? Yeah. And we even had that political conversation because this was 20, I don't want to tell my age, but no, 28, 29 years ago. I don't know.
So it was quite a long time ago, where you didn't see as many people living that way, or I had never observed that. And especially, I guess I was younger too, but I had never observed that. And they absolutely did. This is creation care. And what was interesting is so that changed a lot of things in me, but also then that same church had invited Dr. Matthew Sleeth. He wrote Serve God, Save the Planet. And that book, I got a copy, I heard him speak, and it just transformed my thought process and turned that into action for what I do, really. I mean, that was a big turning point for me. And at that point, I was married and we had brought in two more girls, and we had 3 daughters, trying to raise our family in a way that we are being good stewards of the earth and trying to pass those things on. And
so what were some of those things in the book that kind of changed your thoughts?
Well, it was so much around how caring for the environment is caring for people. It's not, and I think I get a lot of comments, not a lot, I get some comments to say, well, the earth is just going to burn up. It doesn't matter. We're going to have a new earth and a new, and this doesn't matter. And we need to care about people more than the planet. And I'm like, whoa, but caring for the planet is caring for people. You know, clean air, clean water, the resources that we're using up and not leaving for generations to come, that's selfless living. That's living for other people when we are mindful and live in that kind of way where we are thinking about those future generations in regards to climate. And we know that it affects the more marginalized, climate issues affect the more marginalized communities as well.
Wow.
So, you think air pollution and all of those things. There's, and in third world countries in particular, but even marginalized. So you see
those images of people sorting through just piles of trash and plastic. Yeah.
Yes, and you think they're polluted waterways, they're polluted airways. Even in the United States, too, it affects the marginalized communities. There's a community outside of Louisiana that's called Cancer Alley, and it's like an 80-mile stretch of where there are massive cancer rates because of petrochemical plants and the massive amounts. I mean, even if we look around here in our air quality, but that book in particular, he was a doctor, and his life was transformed when a child had died in the ER that day. He was an ER doctor due to air pollution and her airways and asthma and those types of issues. Yeah. And the more he really looked into it and researched it, and he just transformed his entire life. And it was just so inspirational. And that just really kind of set me on that trajectory that if we are to love God and love people, this is one way we can do it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there are a few, probably simple, I feel like you would have good suggestions of simple ways of people listening. This is one of those things that anyone can do and anyone can be a part of.
Yeah.
So if somebody is thinking, okay, how can I, as a person who cares about people, wants to pass on a cleaner environment for the next generations, what are some just quick things, changes you can make?
Yeah. And two, there are a lot of small changes. And I always say start with 1 or 2 things, make them habits, and then go on to the next things. And a lot of people think, well, these small little things don't make a difference. But if 1 million people all do that, it does make a big difference. And I'll get to some of those. But also, I always want to say we need to have grace for ourselves as well in regards to climate issue. There's a lot of climate anxiety, a lot of climate guilt. I don't know what people think of how we have to live too in certain ways. And I always say the responsibility isn't solely on us. There's mass producers that are really the big hitters that we can advocate for change, either on a legislative level or whatever. And so our individual actions do make a difference, but at the end of the day, we've got to be advocating for change at a big corporate level as well. Yeah, so I always say, have grace for yourself. Yes, we can do what we can do when you can do it. And there's different seasons in life of what you can do regarding having kids at home or not having children at home, and how much time and how much resources you have. But there are a lot of things that you can do that actually do save you money, and also help with waste as well. And we've so much more science is coming out now about plastic use and finding plastic in all sorts of places in our bodies that we just don't think about. And a lot of people don't have the time to think about it. And so I get it, and that's okay. Yeah. We need to have grace for that too. But that's why it's just so maddening that so many things are just so mass produced and put out there. And you think if you can grab it off a shelf, then it's safe for you. And that's
not the case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you have kind of talked about the church giving you a bit of pushback, but you also talked about this Creation Care.
Yeah.
Is it a nonprofit? I don't think I've heard of them.
Tri-State Creation Care, it is. Mm-hmm. It's a local organization, and it is a multi-faith, folks from all different churches who say, we care about this, and how can we encourage and spur one another on to live in such a way. And they do a conference each year locally and have a different speaker come in typically and have different discussions of topic, be it waste reduction, air quality, water quality, heat rising, the temperatures rising, and how is that affecting marginalized populations, things like that. Yeah, they're a great organization. So there are those people too.
Yeah, I was wondering where the church is stepping into that space, if you've seen that happen.
Yes, I think more and more. And I've actually had a couple local pastors reach out on our Instagram, which is really encouraging, to say, hey, can you come and visit our church and see where are the ways that we're being wasteful? And
that's great.
Yeah,
that's a really
super
cool
encouraging.
Step.
Yes, yeah.
That's awesome.
And some of it's as simple as we want to be hospitable as church, as folks too. And so you have the water bottles and the styrofoam coffee cups and all of that, all those hospitable type of things, but they're just single use. And we think all of the resources that are used to go into a single use water bottle, we use it for 20 minutes and then its impact lasts forever kind of thing. So just the education, the thoughtfulness around things, and so many churches have kitchens, and can we encourage folks to bring their own water cup? And we have water jugs and dispensers or whatever, refills type stations and coffee mugs. And so the church I go to, it's very small, and so you can't make a suggestion, I don't think, without being willing to step in and do something about it. So I said, hey, how about we get rid of the coffee cups and we'll do a mug station, have some mugs, and I'll be the one to wash those after service. And so appreciative and absolutely, kind of thing. And so there are simple solutions, and I think can elevate the experience too.
I was like, I want to go to a church that has coffee mugs instead of styrofoam cups.
Right.
Like, that sounds great.
So
that's awesome.
There are just those little things. And again, like I said, watch what suggestions you make, because you might be called in to fulfill the duty. But
that's usually the answer for churches, is like, that sounds great, why don't you just start it?
Yes, absolutely. So for sure.
So let's talk about, how did your journey take you into being a councilwoman?
Yeah, that's what was actually listening to a podcast was one of the little pings in my mind. I feel like there were so many little things, and I felt like it was the Lord just using various different moments, I guess, that kind of led me in that direction. And one was listening to a podcast called How to Save the Planet. And at the end of it, they said, if you care about these things, these initiatives, get involved on a local level. Is there a school board position, as city council position, town, whatever, council? How can you get involved? And I just thought, man, what am I doing on a different level where I could potentially make more of an impact? And I love my store. I love what we do, and we get to engage with the public every day. And we want to be a hospitable place where people come in and ask questions and feel comfortable and welcomed. And that's a way to I think, be Christ too in a business, is just valuing everyone that comes in the door and engaging with them, and meeting people where they are, and being a resource. So that's just been so lovely, and we will continue doing that, and so important. But I thought, is there another way to step into that work in a different position, maybe with different influence? And that's not my only issue or concern as far as getting involved in that way, but definitely one of the drivers of when I first started thinking about it. And then, and I wasn't not a real political person. You say I've always voted. I think that's our privilege and honor and right to do. But that's about as far as went, and if I didn't know much about a certain category that I was going to be voting on, I'd call the person who did know, like, hey, tell me about these people. Who do I? And wasn't super engaged in that way. But so I thought, no, it would never be for me kind of thing. And then I just, on a national level, you watch it, and especially now, there's just such vitriol, it's just spewing from either side, and we're so polarized, and it's so discouraging. And it's hard, politicians get a bad rap,
Yes.
And some rightly so, I guess. So I thought I would never want to have a part of that. And I was having lunch with one of our city councilors, and he goes, hey, have you ever thought about, running for city council? And I knew one of the women councilors was not going to run again. And I've always thought we do need better representation as well on council. And we need more women in politics in particular, and more diversity all around, especially locally. And I thought, well, no, it's funny you say that. I was just listening to this podcast, and then I listened to another podcast who had interviewed a state rep, and it was just, I was so impressed with him and the way he navigated on a state level difficult things, and being a minority party, but how he navigated and worked across the aisle. And I thought, man, if it could be like that, I would maybe want to be a part of that. And there's a great book called A Space Between Us, and its subtitles like how Jesus teaches us to talk about religion and politics. The two things that we say, we can't talk about, right. You steer clear from. And but it's like, how do we come to the space between us and converse and have a dialogue? And it's civil and it's kind, and you're valuing each one's thoughts, because I respect you as a human being,
Yeah.
Even just at the most basic level. It's
right.
Like, so all of those things just sort of really excited me, actually, to think if I could have an influence in that, and if all people who say, I don't want to be a part of that because of how it is, stays away, then how does anything... And I would say on a local level, it wasn't that, it's not like that bad,
Yeah.
But just looking more at our national dialogue,
Right.
But so here we are.
Yeah. Wow.
So I dove in, and I am loving it, actually.
Are you? Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. So it's great. I mean, it's challenging for sure, but
yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Okay. So how do you try to navigate that space?
So really having the opportunity of demonstrating those Christ-like qualities, to let your yes be yes and your no be no. Mm-hmm. You get the opportunity and the privilege to represent, and to really look at people and give them a voice. I feel like there are a lot of people who feel like their voice hasn't been heard, and or have had a seat at the table. And so just to potentially have the opportunity to influence that and to change that and to say you matter in these types of ways.
That was Jesus's ministry.
Yeah.
Just walking through with all of the high-ranking people and saying, hey, no, I'm going to step aside. You're going to step aside, and it's the least of these that I need to talk to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And then just even navigating, working with other thought process, just other personalities and other, people who think differently than you, which is good. Mm-hmm. I mean, we need to surround ourselves and have people who think differently to challenge us, but to listen and respond in a way that is kind and to where you can kind of work through those challenges. You have an opportunity to see how you're going to respond to things.
Right. You mentioned that there's some cynicism when it comes to politics, but what about the other way around? I would think in politics there would be a lot of cynicism towards a Jesus follower.
Yeah.
And,
it is funny that you say that, and I don't know how much to say. I don't like to use the word Christian.
Right.
If I can say that.
You can say whatever you want. This is you.
Okay. I don't, because
you're not the first one to say that, though.
That words, I feel like it's kind of been hijacked, or it's subjective. It's like it can mean whatever it means to whomever is saying it. And I think there's been a lot of examples that I don't think really show who Christ is or who he would be. Even like coming out as a Democrat. Yeah, as a believer.
Oh shoot! Let's just turn this off right now. No, just kidding.
But it's funny. There were so many conversations, and I was a little, insecure about that. And initially, when I started my campaign, and I can tell you more times than my hands how many people came up and were surprised at that. And I get it, but it enabled me to have a conversation and to say, I don't think Jesus was either one. I don't think Jesus would say he's a Republican or a Democrat. And it's funny, and I don't know if I have time for this, so you can delete it. You can
let's do it.
In that book, The Space Between Us, it was a perfect example. It resonated. There's this gal who grew up in a super conservative Republican Christian home and went off to a very conservative Christian college. And there was a billboard for the Young Democrats Club. And she was aghast. Really, she's like, I stood there and looked at that. And she goes, in really small print at the bottom, it says, yes, Jesus loves us too. And she just cracked up, and she goes, oh, okay. But she goes, but if I'm honest with myself, I walked away and I said, but he loves us more. And that was just something. But then though, that pinged in her to say, let me think about that. Let me challenge that thought that I've always had. And I think if we're willing to do that, it's so good. Not that I would align with everything that, no one, has it all where we all are going to agree on everything. You go to a church, I'm not going to maybe agree with everything this church says and does, but it's, you resonate. And it's the same way, I'm not going to agree with everything all that. You can't put it all in a bucket of all these Democrats think this way or all these Republicans think this way. And there are so many issues that we have just polarized that, and that's just our system too, right? I mean, I would love to be an independent and say, I just want to be about, the people and the issues and how do we talk through this and get to the best case scenario for the most amount of people in our community and just love our neighbors and build up our community and, all of those things. Right. But it's just the system we live in. So that was a big surprise, but it enabled to a lot of people when I did come out on the Democrat ticket, but it enabled a lot of conversations and a lot of great understanding, I think, both ways. And we're all still learning, and there's a lot that we can all keep learning from each other. So
that's great. Well, that's really time because we're doing short episodes.
Yeah.
But thank you for being for Evansville.
Yes, I absolutely am. Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me too.
You just heard a story of the church beyond the pew. At For Evansville, we believe that the church has the power to transform our community, but it doesn't always show up where and how it should. That's why we're on a mission to help Christians and churches discover the role that they can play in addressing our city's greatest needs. Are you passionate about seeing the church bring God's peace and justice throughout our city? If so, I want to invite you to join the For Evansville Collective, a community of people who are passionate about being the church beyond the pew and helping others to do the same. You can support For Evansville's mission and gain exclusive access to resources that will help you love our city well. Visit forevansville.org/collective to learn more.